think every step that we take is really just for us to experience, to learn, to grow, and hopefully be a wiser person, be a better person in running this business. It's just one step in our life's journey, I guess.
Hi, I'm Maximilian Büsser, founder of MB&F. To me, watchmaking is art with a capital A. Watchmaking is about creating kinetic sculptures. Watchmaking is more importantly a mindset, it's a journey. The history of watchmaking is filled with adventurers, dreamers, engineers, artists who will each in their own way contribute to a better world. The watchmaking journey is first and foremost about very special individuals. Some are rebels and mavericks, and most have a little touch of madness. Now, over the years, we've come to realize that many MB&F owners are adventurers themselves. Our collectors circle called The Tribe is full of such individuals. Many have amazing lives and stories to tell, and this is why I decided to start this podcast. Today, I'm really thrilled to welcome Pei, Chia, and Ken Kuan, the visionary founders behind Delugs and proud members of our tribe. Their journey began in the Singaporean military, where they met, and a few years later led them to uncover a surprising gap in the watch market. From what started as a hobby on the side, they built a few years later a company, Delugs, dedicated to creating quality watch straps to fit virtually every timepiece. They've been instrumental in changing timepiece collectors' mindset on how they accessorize their watches. Up till recently, you would buy a beautiful watch and change the strap only when it was marked or too frayed. Thanks to Delugs, I and many other collectors are having a ball creating, accessorizing and changing our strap depending on our mood or even what we wear. Pei and Ken, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so looking forward to hearing your amazing journey.
Thank you so much, Max, for having us here. It's truly an honor to be on this podcast, to be speaking with you, and very excited to share our story.
We are very excited to be here today.
Excellent. So, you're currently based in Singapore, but both of you studied abroad at Berkeley in California, pursuing very different fields. Pei in demography and population studies, and Ken in industrial engineering. Now, despite your diverse academic interests, you share a unique bond through your years of service in Singapore's armed forces. Pei in the Air Force and Ken in the Army, with nearly a decade of service each. I'm going to start with you, Pei. What inspired you to join the Air Force?
Well, I wanted a unique career path. I think something that was different from all my peers. In Singapore, it's mandatory for every Singaporean male to go to the military. But for the women, it's not mandatory. So I actually volunteered. I was really drawn by the camaraderie and being part of a group where everyone had a common vision. I think part of me was also a little bit of a rebel. I was really curious about what every Singaporean male had to go through. And hearing like the army stories from my dad, uncles, cousins, I really wanted to kind of experience that. So I was actually the first female in my family to join the military. Honestly, when I joined it back then, I was thinking that it would actually be my lifelong career.
So you actually thought that was going to be your career?
Yeah, I did. I mean, most of the time when you start on a new journey, you wouldn't be thinking of the end, would you?
No, for sure. And so before we ask Ken, so what lessons or mindset have you carried forward from those? How many years did you spend in the military?
About 10 in total. And then I had to pursue my studies in between.
Right. So what do you carry with you from those years?
I think like the biggest thing I took away from it was resilience. Knowing that mental strength is much more powerful than physical strength. And once you put your mind to something, there is nothing you cannot do. I'm a pretty petite lady. I'm about 5'2", and being able to carry the fill pack that, all of the other, basically the same fill pack that all the guys carry and going through everything that they went through. I think after going through the experience, I think there's nothing that I'm afraid of trying.
And so, Ken, you began as an officer cadet in 2012 and were also super active in all sorts of university clubs. I can't even list them, there are too many. And even served as a scout training leader. Is that the person you are, or is that the person you became?
I think, I would say in my earlier days, there's a lot of exploration to see where my interests really lie. I would say I'm someone who is fairly adaptable. I try different things, I experience them, and I grow to like them. Even if I'm put in an environment where I'm not comfortable to begin with, I think I make myself comfortable over time. I would say I'm a pretty active. I was pretty active. I enjoyed the outdoors, but especially coming from Singapore, moving to the US for 4 years, that really opened my eyes to what the world is like. Singapore, all you see is concrete jungle, but when you're out there, you see nature, you see trees that are taller than you can imagine. And I think I really enjoyed that part of it. It was a very fun childhood, very fun experiences for sure.
So both of you graduated from UC Berkeley and you launched Delugs in 2018. But this whole story, this entrepreneurial journey began way earlier in your dorm room, if I'm not wrong. Ken, let's start with you. How did this begin?
This takes us back to the end of 2016. Pei and I, we were in Berkeley at the time. We were living together. We're not married yet back then, but we wanted to pick up a hobby that both of us could enjoy together. I think, we were living together, we had our own activities, but we wanted to come together to do something that both of us would enjoy. We wanted to do something crafty, but I wasn't the type to draw or paint in that sense. So I thought, I was into leather shoes, leather boots. I thought, why not try to do leather crafting, making things out of leather. So final year of studies, we picked up leather crafting. I think we really enjoyed the process. After graduation, I think I continued to craft, took it a bit more seriously, and started crafting. Even though I was already back in Singapore, had a full-time career in the military, but I was still doing crafting on the side. Yeah.
So you started crafting straps for yourselves, or just to learn, or was it already an idea of a business? What was it at the beginning?
It wasn't just straps. When I started, it was key fobs. So when we started, we made key fobs, card holders, wallets, even briefcases and bags. But this was not a business or anything. This was a hobby. So it started from a passion for crafting. We wanted to see what we could make, what we could create, I guess. And it was the journey of learning about crafting that was enjoyable, of course, and then seeing the final product that you can make, seeing pieces that people will use. I remember crafting a briefcase for my dad when he came to visit in Berkeley. So I had a timeline because he was visiting, but I was up all night just trying to finish that project. That is really the joy, to figure out how to make an item from the raw materials. Yeah.
He put up some of his books on some of the leather crafting forums, and people really liked them. So they started requesting for some projects or for him to actually make some wallets or bifolds for them. But for me, I think I pretty much stuck to crafting only for myself. We were quite different. Unlike Ken, who was driven by sharing his craft with others, I was worried that if I would lose the passion for my hobby, if I added too much pressure to it by taking orders. So we were quite different in that sense.
I cannot even imagine what your room must have looked like in those days, with both of you actually crafting in the room all your incredible leather goods. That's amazing. And so it took a few years for both of you before you were able to commit to Delugs full time. But was there a tipping point where you realized it could be more than a hobby? It actually could be something you devote your lives to?
When we started Delugs itself, well, the first technical start date, I guess, is November 2018. That's when we had our very first sales. But to be honest, even then, from then until like mid-2019, I would say it's more of a side hobby and learning journey. There wasn't really a grand vision of what it would become. We progressed from crafting as a hobby to starting a business as a hobby, if that makes sense. We were really just learning about the journey of entrepreneurship. From mid-2019, I think that's when we decided to put a bit more effort into maybe making this a business to see if it can work out. And I think when it really picked up was probably in November 2019. I think that's when things just started to go a bit crazy. So just to give some context on numbers, I think from November 2018, when we first started, until about October 2019, I was just looking through some stats, we had a grand total of like 220 orders. And in the 2 months after that, so November and December 2019, we had 266 orders. So that what we did in 1 year, we did in 2 months. And I remember thinking like, wow, this is great. But at the same time, a lot of our straps back then were made to order. So we actually spent the next few months, all the way until end of February 2020, just catching up on the backlog. So the start of 2020 was a very stressful time for us because we had to deal with all the impatient customers and people waiting for their straps. But at the same time, I think that's when we felt like, hey, maybe this could maybe be more than a side gig. It wasn't just a hobby where we were figuring things out. Maybe we could take this full time.
In those moments, you were still in the military or you'd left?
Still in the military.
All right. So you're doing that on your overtime and your evenings and your nights.
Exactly.
The real entrepreneur. Wow, incredible. What kept you going? Because you could have basically just thrown the towel in and say, oh, this is just getting too much and I've got a job to do. What kept you going? What kept you up at night doing those orders?
I think it was really the passion for the craft and creating products, creating leather goods, but also creating a business, I think, and knowing that good things would take some time. I think for us, what really motivated us or kept us going was really the small interactions we had with customers who would show up and collect products, right? Or collect the straps from our doorstep and then giving us feedback on how they felt wearing it. I think that gave us a lot of affirmation in continuing the business. So I think it's all these little moments. And in fact, we still keep in touch with some of our early customers. We have one customer who bought our very first strap. And every year, he would actually post a picture of what condition it is in at that moment. And it's really very heartwarming to know that we built products that lasted over time and to see the condition of how it is until today.
Well, firstly, that strap wasn't the best. Our quality has certainly improved over the years.
I was slightly embarrassed by it.
Yeah, slightly embarrassed by the earlier products. No, but I think like Pei said, it's really those moments where you deliver something, a product to a customer, and they're so happy and they're so satisfied with it that they feel that whatever they're getting is way more value than what they paid for. To me, it's the feeling that you can bring joy to someone's life through the products that you create. I think that gives us a lot of that motivation. I think the mindset that we took towards this is really one of growth and learning. We don't see this journey of Delugs as an endpoint. I think every step that we take is really just for us to experience, to learn, to grow, and hopefully be a wiser person, be a better person in running this business. It's just one step in our life's journey, I guess.
You're incredibly wise for your young age. I would have loved to have that sort of thought process when I was in my early 30s. But I think everything comes when it has to come. So congratulations. So you started the company 6 years ago. You hired your first team member, I believe, 3 years ago only. And now you're close to 30 in the company. What's been the most important challenges over these last 3 years of growth?
I think Ken and I always speak about this. We always pause to look back on how the year has been. And what we realized so far is that every year of the business has felt so different from the last. So it's almost like we're running a completely new business every year. I think when we started, I would say the most challenging parts were more operational. So like building our product range, getting orders fulfilled on time. And then once we got into the rhythm of things, it was about marketing, getting our brand out to more people. And I think today we have so many different facets of the business to look at. So besides building and managing our growing team, we also have to think about strategies to keep moving forward. An ongoing challenge is always to think about what is the value that Delugs bring to the watch community and how we're making a difference. Because I think that is what sets us apart from other people or other businesses or other brands. So it's always to reflect on the value that we bring.
I think looking back on the past few years, for me, a big one is really to not set mental limits on what we can really achieve. If I look at where we are today and when I first started, if I were to say in 6 years' time, this is what you need to achieve, I think honestly, or this is what you need to be doing, I might not have taken that first step. But I think sometimes we don't really know what we are truly capable of until we do it. Many times, we will come across a problem or a challenge that at that time would seem so insurmountable. Like, how do we get past this issue? But I think how I approach it is that you just have to break it down into chunks, grit your teeth sometimes and just take one step forward at a time and really view all these as just part of the journey, part of the learning. I think once we embrace there will be challenges, there will be uncomfortable periods, then it's a matter of just being comfortable with being uncomfortable, if that makes sense. Yeah.
It completely makes sense. I've known you for a few years, and you really epitomize for me the saying of Michael Caine is use the difficulty. I don't think you thrive on difficulties, but you use the difficulty and you grow through it. And I think it's something which draws us, both of our teams, close, and we love working with you guys. Change maybe a little bit the subject, the advantage of being two. So you've built a really impressive business in a very short time while navigating life as a married couple. Pei, your recognition in Forbes 30 Under 30 Asia for 2024 is a pretty great testament. From the start, did you both share the same vision and ambitions? Or were you aiming for the same level of success, or did your goals evolve over time?
And I think we didn't have diverging views on where the overall endpoint of the business might be. I think we both knew the rough trajectory. We both enjoy the process of operating, if you will, of running the business. And really, I think, seeing how far we can take the business. You talked about goals. I think for us, really, the goalpost is always shifting, I would say. It's probably in our nature to not be satisfied with the status quo. We always want to do things better, to be better, and just to see how far we can take this challenge. Yeah.
What are the biggest benefits and potential risks of working as a duo? And I'm not yet talking as a married couple, just as working as a duo.
Just working together.
Yeah.
I think the biggest benefits of working together or being a duo is really having two of everything, right? Two brains, two hearts, two perspectives, and twice the capacity to do things. Given that the entrepreneurship journey can be a rather lonely one, having a sounding board is always good. It's always nice to have someone there to celebrate your successes with. And going through failures together makes it much easier as well.
Yeah. I think many times, we've, in the past, I think before our careers were so intertwined, there would be days when I remember Pei would share certain stories with me about how terrible her day has been. And as much as I understood what it might be like, I think you can never really identify with it. And similarly, I think there are times when she's so thrilled that she had passed certain tests or did certain things really well. And I'm happy for her, but I can't feel the same joy. And I think today, when we both go through the business together, we totally understand. Like if we suddenly, make a big breakthrough or someone important reached out to us and say, good job, I enjoyed my straps. I think we both feel that success together.
Yeah, definitely.
A potential risk, maybe we will go to the potential risk. I think that's really just us putting our eggs in one basket. Many people are afraid of that or think that could be a risk that is too big to take. And whether the business does well or not, I guess it would definitely impact our livelihood very, very much.
Especially with a little kid, growing family, I think that's risky. You always be careful of the downsides, I guess.
Which, well, you've got a little son and soon a second baby on the way, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
That's right.
So you really managed to do everything together. So how do you manage the separation between work and personal life? Or is there one?
It's tough, I'll be honest. I think being an entrepreneur, it's 24/7. You probably know this, Max. I think your brain is always on. There isn't an off switch that you can. I mean, if you're a salary employee, sometimes it's easy on the weekends or at night, you just check out. You put your phone aside and say that this is my personal time. Unfortunately, there isn't one in this brain. Sometimes I'll find that my physical body is present, on the weekends with the family, but my mind is just drifting off somewhere, thinking about the next strap we should make, the next marketing initiative, the company, the people. So I think that's quite difficult to separate. It's something we're struggling with and still trying to find the right balance, I guess.
Pei, are you like that also?
Yeah, I think for me it has been equally challenging. I always saw work and personal life as quite separate, especially after becoming a mom. I always felt that if I wanted to give my all both ways, but I felt that if I did more at work, I might be doing less at home and with my kid. If I spend more time with my kid, I could potentially be missing out a big business opportunity. So I always wish I could double my time. I always thought of it as work-life balance. It's like a zero-sum game, right? But until one day, Ken actually introduced this concept to me. He said, let's not think of it as work-life balance, because balance means it's a zero-sum game. You always have to give into some things and give and take. But why not think about it as work-life harmony instead? So even if we were at dinner or a family event, if I happened to be thinking of a really good business idea and I wanted to share with him right away, I could, and not make it feel like work, right? I think between both of us, we would also signal to each other when we feel like, okay, it's enough work talk at the moment or at dinner, and we would want to pause for a while. We would just let each other know, but at other times, we keep that channel open. Yeah, so I think that's how we've been working so far. I think having that mindset shift has helped me a little bit, and I definitely would want to share that with more people as well.
Yeah, I think being a parent, and especially a mom, I think that mom's guilt is very strong. For her, she's always worried about, am I spending enough time with our kid and all that. I remember last year when we actually had a collaboration with Samsung locally. We had to take care of the kid. He wasn't in school back then, and we couldn't find anyone who could help us to care for him at the moment. I think usually our parents would be the one that can help out, but they were occupied at that moment. What we did instead was we actually texted and asked, is it okay if we bring our kid to the meeting? At the time, we just went full time. We were naive about how people think about work and family, I guess. But we actually did it. I mean, I think they were surprised at the request. They probably couldn't say no to it. But here we are going into a meeting at the Samsung HQ in Singapore, and with
a baby in the carrier.
he was like 7 months at the time. Yeah, he was strapped to her. We have a photo. But really, to me, that is one of those memories that will stay with me. And I guess it signals how we try to take that approach between balancing both sides or finding harmony, I guess. Yeah.
Honestly, I admire that a lot. And Pei, I know that you personally are very intense on increasing women's representation in the watch community, which is a horribly macho, men-driven community. So coming back to that, there are not enough women in our industry, for sure. And do you want to share a few of the initiatives or why it's important for you?
Yeah, so I think I often might find myself as one of the few or only women in the room at many watch events. I think every industry differs, and the watch industry happens to be a more male-centric one, and that's okay. I mean, similar to when I was in the military, it was very male-centric as well. But I do think that there are so many interesting parts of this watch industry that I would love for more women to have the opportunity to experience and not be intimidated because there are less of us. So I think I've met many different women in the industry. I've met collectors who have collections that are way crazier than any man collection. But then I've also met women who are a little bit more timid and shy away from events because they are a little bit more intimidated if they're the only one there, or they feel that difference and they're afraid to ask more questions or be exposed. And I think that having more women could also influence things very differently, bringing different perspectives to the entire industry. So from watchmakers to designers, even to people who are running the brand and telling the stories, and to customers who appreciate the final product and are the ones wearing them. On our end, I think Delugs is barely scraping the tip of the iceberg when it comes to women representation efforts. We're trying, we'll continue to do so. But I think firstly, our products aren't differentiated by gender. So if you go to our website, if you come to our store, we don't say that, oh, these are male straps or female straps or anything like that, right? So it's not differentiated by gender. And we try to be more inclusive in our sizing. Our straps come in different lengths. Our watch cases have cushions that are compressible to fit different sizes as well. For our events, we're open to both women and men, and we actually organized our first ever women's event on International Women's Day this year. Yeah, so I think there's a lot more we could do in this space, and I would want to continue doing that with Delugs. But I think as a whole, it would be nice if the watch industry has more women present at events at different levels as well. Yeah.
I think that's something which defines also Delugs. It's not only about straps, it's about the community. You have worked, both of you, so hard to create a community of people who love what you do, who share the same values. How did that happen? Is that just because that's who you are? Or is that because at some point you thought, this is important for us because nobody knows we exist? How did it start, the community?
I guess we didn't want to really just build a business or be like a strap supplier without a soul, if that makes sense. We wanted to build a brand. We wanted to show who we are as individuals, as collectors as well. We are people running this company, this brand. And I think we also wanted to be inclusive in terms of the tiers of collectors, if you will, that we serve, because we really understood what it's like to be at each stage of collecting. Whether you just started out, you own a Seiko or PRX, or whether you own the high-end independence, you own an MB&F watch. You're here because you enjoy mechanical timepieces. You enjoy this hobby that everyone else enjoys. And we wanted to create an environment where, regardless of your collection, you could come together, appreciate watches and appreciate straps. And I think this message, this attitude resonated with people. They could sense that we were genuine watch enthusiasts. We are making straps for fellow collectors like ourselves. And we weren't in this just for like the business and money. I think that helped to connect us with people, and they felt a certain sense of belonging here.
And one of the most amazing things I find in your company is you've got a 24/7 customer service support. For such a small team, that is mind-boggling. When did you start that, and what were how did you have the idea of having 24/7 somebody online ready to answer people?
I would say we brought it online 24/7 earlier this year, at the start of this year. And what started out as I wouldn't call it a crisis, but a problem for us. What started out as a problem where we didn't have enough people managing customer support quickly became, I would say, one of our biggest strengths. My reason for this is quite simple. I think when I think of online and offline, I see a lot of parallels, and I see lessons on both sides that we can really learn from and bring into the other domain. So the analogy I always give is this: if you walk into a store and you ask a question to the store staff, right? If they don't reply you in, say, a few minutes, would you continue waiting there for an answer, or would you walk out? So I think just because it's an online store doesn't make the need for a sales assistant, if you will, any more or any less important. I think it's important to have someone there to answer the questions that customers may have. And unfortunately for us, or fortunately, because it's hard to do this, people who are buying straps have a ton of questions. All they know is that this is my watch, I'm looking for a strap for it. Anything else is your problem, right? And we have to help them figure it out. In store, it's easy. I can just take the right size. But if you're online, they have to make the purchase on their own. And that makes it so much more difficult. So I think we really saw that beyond having a good product, we needed that level of support to give people the assurance that what you're buying would fit your watch, would fit your wrist. And ultimately, I think we shouldn't forget that shopping online is still not a very common occurrence for many people. I mean, all of us here are fairly young, or young at heart, and we may be comfortable buying online, but there are many people who wouldn't want to or wouldn't be comfortable doing that. And the least that we can do is to at least have someone responding to them if they have a question.
Yeah. I think the shift to 24/7 was quite a net business decision as well, because we have customers all over the world, and just operating in Singapore time doesn't really work out for many of our customers on the other side of the globe. So it was a goal to eventually have that 24/7 customer support, so that at any point in time, if you were anywhere in the world and shopping, there would be someone there to assist you.
I won't ask my team at MB&F to do the same. If they're listening to me now, it would be a little bit difficult for them. So therefore, I've got such admiration for what you've managed. But maybe one day we'll get there. Maybe we will. So another aspect that sets you guys apart is your strong focus on innovation. Your website is incredibly seamless. Maybe more that's not innovation, it's really tech-driven and customer-driven. It's so easy to order a strap, and I'm a pretty low-tech guy. But why innovate? If I look at it, you offer an amazing choice. You've got great value for money, and you've created a community. That could have been enough. What's the driver to innovate for you?
I think because our business started from a place of passion, and we're always thinking in the shoes of collectors. So what would collectors want today, but they can't find in the market? And I think more theoretically, I think we always believe ourselves that change is the only constant. So if we stay stagnant, we'll probably be irrelevant one day, or people might do the same products, and it's always the same thing over and over again. So I believe in this as a person as well, and We always have to just keep learning, keep improving. And I think that improvement to us is innovation. And there's this saying in Chinese actually, 活到老学到老. It means to keep learning as you grow old, never stop learning as you grow.
I think it really stems from this idea that we are quite perfectionists in what we do as well, and we just want to keep doing things better. So if, for example, we're using a strap, whether it's from our own or from a brand or from anywhere else or any other product, we always think, how can this be better? Like, is there something that I can think of to make this even better than what it is today? And I mean, this applies more so to products, but to any other aspects of the business. I mean, if I give an example of a buckle, I mean, something as simple as a buckle, we recently changed it up. Most people don't think of a buckle or something like a spring bar, right? You just say it's something that has been done the same way for the past, I have no idea how many years, but people don't innovate in that space. But for us, we actually went to the extent of making our own spring bars where the quick release knob wouldn't fall off, because that's a common problem we see. For buckles, we made a buckle where it's so angular, where it's angled in a way that doesn't stretch out the strap holes, because traditional buckles would often stretch out the holes because the tongue would sit at an angle. So it's more problems like these. When I see it, at least, it becomes stuck in my mind. I can't get rid of it. It's like, it's there. I know it's there. I know it's a problem that we eventually have to solve. If I can do something to solve it today, and well, it's not too much of a pain to solve it, then that's something that we'll go ahead and do if it's within our abilities to. I don't think it's yes, obviously from a business angle, there's also that, we want to stay ahead. If we keep stagnant, people will overtake us. But I think it's our spirit that we want to bring to always keep improving on the products.
Is there a moment where going forward and trying to push boundaries is not too much? I'm just thinking of that because I look at your website and you've got thousands of SKUs, thousands. And I'm like, how are they dealing with this? I would go bananas trying to deal with this. And on top of that, you do bespoke. So I know you started with bespoke. That was the story, the beginning. But we all know that bespoke is an incredibly tricky animal because customers don't really know what they want and sometimes are disappointed with what they've created. And tell me, why so many SKUs? Why bespoke?
Yeah, so I think we started, like you mentioned now, we started with bespoke because everyone has different tastes. And those work well at the beginning because it managed the risk for us as a small company. But eventually, as orders grew, so did the wait time. And we knew that it was not scalable as a business. So we had to have straps that are made ahead of time and ready in our inventory when people wanted to buy. But that meant that we had to offer variety, right? There has to be something for everyone when they're looking for a strap. And when I say variety, I think it's not just in materials and colors, but also lengths and also lug widths, especially the odd lug widths. So we had to focus, or rather we think that to build the business, we had to focus on building inventory and increasing our SKUs. And with a wide enough variety, there'll be a strap for everyone.
It's definitely something that sets us apart as well. The whole point when we started Delugs was that we wanted to provide handcrafted straps, but at relatively affordable prices. You don't have to wait for them. I think what we realized is just how impatient people are. You probably know that the best as well. People don't want to pay for something and wait a few weeks or months to get it. If I buy it now, it's because I want it now. I'm not buying it because I want it in 6 months. So even though we could make straps for many, many watches out there through the bespoke program, but ultimately many people still wanted something immediately. But yet at the same time, it's quite impossible to really make straps for every single watch out there to meet everyone's style. And that's why we have the bespoke program as well. In a way, we are trying to have something for everyone. I think we try to, as a business, we don't want to just serve one segment of the watch collector community. Whether you are looking to buy something off the shelf, if you will, or you want to create a piece that is uniquely yours, that you can pair with very specific details. Or maybe you have a watch that has very specific strap requirements, like many of the HMs. I mean, you guys didn't make it easy for strap businesses like
For sure not. Sorry.
So we want to offer bespoke to these customers who really appreciate the craft, wouldn't mind waiting slightly longer, maybe paying a little bit more, and getting a product that's uniquely yours. I think the benefit for us as a business is that we get inspired by their creativity as well. There are some things that we will never create on our own. We see what they've done, we see how it looks. Then we decide, hey, that actually looks quite nice. Can we make that ahead of time to provide it to other people?
And are you your own guinea pigs? Do you create, first of all, for your own collection? And are you actually watch collectors yourselves?
For sure. At the start, I mean, when we make straps, it was really just for ourselves, for our watches. Today, you'll see that many of our watches skew towards, we'll say, dressier watches, or like watches that come on leather straps, because that's how the business started. We were making straps for watches that we own. I think today, I've fallen down the rabbit hole many years ago, really, really deep into the rabbit hole. When we first started, I would say business started first, or rather leather crafting started first. Then the business came in, and then that appreciation for mechanical pieces came on board thereafter. But today it's very much equal. I find that there's inspiration in both the watch world, if you will, the watch industry. There's a lot to learn from that. There's a lot to admire about the watches, the craft. And there's a lot to learn from the business side of things, from the e-com side of things, from what it takes to run a business at this scale. So I think it's nice to have that two worlds kind of coming together in Delugs. That's one of the things that I enjoy the most about this business.
Yeah, sometimes Ken would say that he's buying a watch for R&D.
Yeah, that's what I tell my wife also when I buy all the watches I buy. Yes. Is there a DNA in your collecting now? Where are you in your journey, if I may ask? I'm not asking for specific products, but I mean, what makes your heart beat faster as a watch collector, as watch collectors? Because I know Pei is a watch collector also.
Yeah, I fell into the rabbit hole too. So
for me, I think today it's really the independent brands that I'm most drawn to. I think apart from the watches itself, I think the watches are where the boundaries are being pushed. There's a lot more interesting things that's happening in the independent space. But I think more importantly, as a founder, as a business owner, I resonate with the founders' stories. I resonate and I identify with the struggles, the challenges of what it means to be an entrepreneur, to be a founder. And that's something that I enjoy, the ability to interact with the founders of many independent brands. It's not something you really get with the much larger brands, the big groups. So I think that chance to be up close and personal, I mean, just having this conversation, for example, that's why I enjoy independent watchmaking. Yeah.
yeah, I think for me, being close to Ken and being part of the business expedited my route into collecting. So I always say that I fell into watch collecting by association. I would consider myself quite a romantic. So I like to tie my watches to a certain experience or a time point in my life. Like, for example, I think my first watch was actually an Oris Big Crown Pointer Date in bronze, which I bought with my very first paycheck. And I think that's a very unusual pick for a first watch, to get a bronze watch. But I think for me, I was excited to see how it patina over time. So for me, I would describe my DNA of collecting watches, or my collection, as classic and timeless, with a dash of bold femininity. Yeah. How about you? What's your DNA?
I just like to see watches that would tick. Like where's obvious where you can see on the dial where things are moving, you see the beating heart of the watch. I think that to me is what makes it so alluring, to see something so, I mean, especially in this day and age, right, where everything is done on your phone, computers, technology. To see something mechanical beating and working, there's a certain charm to it that you can't find anywhere else in our lives. Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys. This has been an amazing talk, and I think it really resonates as the people I know, and I've come to learn to know you guys over the years. You gave us exactly who you are.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the journey of Pei and Ken. From their humble beginnings, crafting leather straps in a student bedroom, to becoming the founders of Delugs, they've shown how passion, precision, and community can create something truly amazing. Their story reminds us that entrepreneurship isn't just about products. It's about the connections we build, the risks we take, and the lessons we learn along the way. We'll soon be back for a conversation with another of our tribe members. If you enjoyed today's episode, remember to subscribe to our podcast so as not to miss our next conversations. Stay curious, keep exploring. and cherish your madness.